Hello, can't believe we are here in the last one. Ah! Let me just share this one. And yeah, we are like a week late, but we made it. We made through it. So I posted this today. You probably saw it. I managed to do some work on the braids in there, and what I'm gonna be doing is actually gonna upgrade you guys, not upgrade, but update you guys on the stuff that I did. I mean, like I'm learning with this, like with the braids and all this stuff, but at least like I can give you a heads up of what I did to actually get a nicer result than what we had yesterday. And then also we're gonna do some exploring with Roger, aka Roger. We're gonna we're gonna take a look at the clothing for what's the character? It's like Ray Harryhausen. So I'm gonna take a look at the clothing because he asked me like some questions about like the shader and stuff. So I'm gonna help him out with that. And then anything else? I mean, like it's up for grabs today. We're gonna be talking about like the. My plan is to actually go through the whole thing about like finishing the braids, right, and telling you how I created them, and then jump right into like an overall recap of the entire thing, like the most like important points of everything. It's like some people still have questions about, it's like what happens to the hair or to the beard or whatever if I change the chin, right? Like, and I'm gonna be showing you like, there's no problem as long as you keep the history intact. You shouldn't have any problem. You should be able to bring the new model as a blend shape, and then just like have everything preserved in there. So you shouldn't have to worry about that. But just to clarify those things, because yeah, I think like it's coming along nicely here. This spot here that looks a little weird is because that's the little plane that I forgot to hide it. But overall, it's actually blending kind of okay. It's like if I remove that little piece from there, it's kind of blending okay. So I'm going to start with that today, and let's explore what I did here. So a few things. I'm going to first show you this one here. Check this out. So I added, remember like I had those little planes that I create, the little cylinder caps, right? What I did, I actually brought those cylinder caps in here from Maya, right? Those little guys here. And then before I did any subdivision to prevent it from shrinking or anything like that, so I brought those little caps straight from here. Let's just hide all this stuff. Braids, braid, blah, blah, blah. It's bald now. So remember like those little caps here, right? So I basically like selected both, and I just like grouped both of them. And then I actually export to ZBrush. But before I did that, I actually went to modeling, UV editor, and then I UV'd them basically. Just unwrapped it. So super simple, right? No questions there. And then in ZBrush, I went ahead and I creased it before I subdivided. So you can go to geometry and you can just press crease, right? So it creates this little border that you're probably familiar with, that little border in there. And then now if you subdivide, you get the perfect circle instead of like getting a wacky kind of geometry in there. So now I got this little circle. So what I did, I painted it. So I painted like with the 3 pure colors, like pure blue, pure green, and pure red, to make sure that I created this pattern in here to force the groom to actually follow this. It's like the split between the different groups for the groom, right? So once I had that done, I came back to Maya, and I assigned those guys here, like this is basically like a Lambert shader, right? I don't even want to render them. So if you don't want to render something, you can always select the object and just go to the properties of the object. And under render stats, you can just say like, turn everything off here. So for example, like no primary visibility, anything like that. You can turn everything off. So you shouldn't render next time. And then what I did, I assigned, since this is just like a Lambert shader, I assigned the same map, this map here. So now if I press 6, right, in the keyboard, I can actually see the colors. So that's basically what I decided to do, because I think it would be easier for me to control those things. So let's just hide everything here, including this guy. So now I have these little guys like with the color in there. So for the braids themselves, you see like that I'm actually having those guys going right in the middle of the color, right? Instead of like hitting like in a random spot like I was having yesterday, I forced them to go right in the middle in there. So to do that, let me just hide this. So to do that, let me just unhide the poly paint, paint effect, sorry, paint effect. And then it looks like this, right? The paint effect itself looks like this. Remember yesterday I was trying to force things by flaring out this area here, so it was closer to the size of the circle. I decided to not mess with that because it was creating all kinds of trouble. So what I did, I created like with 3 hairs, just like Miha suggested yesterday, just 3 of them, right? Instead of like bundles. I had like 120 segments. I did a little bit of a twist because like by default, when I was looking at the braids, once they're done, if you're looking at the back of a braid, it's almost like they're going up, you know, it's like the little triangles that you see when it's braiding like that. It's kind of like the reverse if you look from the back. So that's the way it was looking from the front. So it's almost like the braids are going up instead of down, you know, and then my brain got like little, you know. So what I did, I just twisted it. You see, like it said, I'm gonna copy this number here. You have this control here that you can twist it, right? So I twisted it so the front was actually looking like the little V's are going down, like that, right? And then for the clump width, I just like found what was the best in here. And then I used that little weird little curve in there. So I kept this stuff like close enough, but without like freaking out too much if this is completely out of place in there. So once that was done, let me just, maybe I can create another one here. So I basically clicked the PFX, right? And then I just converted it. So let's just go to modify, convert paint effects to curves. Oh, I think it's not gonna do because I already have another system there, but I can show you how I did it. So once those are transforming to curves, let me just hide this one. I did manually edit those guys. So basically like I deleted one side. So I select those guys here and delete it. And then for those guys here, before I did anything else, because you know, it's like if you look at the curves that were generated when you convert, they have tons of points of control, right? So before I did anything else, I selected the 3 of them and I went to curves and I rebuilt them. So I rebuilt with only like 30 spans, right? So now I have like just a few points of control like that. And then that stuff that was looking a little weird in here, I basically added it manually. So I just brought those points to actually match fairly okay right in the middle right there. So the root of them going right in the middle, right? And another thing that I did as well, I can go back in here so I can show you, is that, see, like those guys now are a little funny there because I'm editing it. But there's another control in here. Yeah, the flatness. So check this thing out. So by default, the flatness has a little bit more, it has a different type of curve in here. So what happens is that if you have this stuff high like this, it gets flatter and flatter until it gets like very super flat like this, right? It gets very shallow like that. So if I do something like this, it gets fatter, like it gets, you know, it's like it gets more volume to the entire thing. So if you look from this angle right here, that's the way you get like those little H shapes in there, like the infinite. But if you go up like that, it gets flatter and flatter. So the flatter you go with this thing, you're more likely you're gonna get intersections because there's not enough space for those thick, you know, it's like chunks of hair to just pass and interlace with each other. So if it's like very flat like this, I think by default was a number that was kind of like in between or something. Oh, this is the tip. So I actually had to tweak this one to make it like as fat as possible with it to look like this, just to make sure that there's no intersection in there. So those are basically the different things I did yesterday, like really added the curve to match right in the middle, use the colors, right? And then when I go back to my, once I have those tweaked as curves, for example, so let's go to this one. So if I had those curves in here, once I had them tweaked and matching the center in there, I just select all of them and I said, oh, did it freeze? Just thinking about it. Don't freeze. Don't do anything funny. Oh, there you go. I pressed Control D, right, to duplicate the whole thing. And then I went here and I just did like a scale minus, and then I had a duplicate of that. So I started like that. I didn't worry about editing both. I just edited one and duplicated, so I had like the two sets. Then I selected all of them, obviously, and then I did the same thing I did yesterday. Once I had the guide created, I just clicked the guide with all of those guys selected, and then under guide, I went here and I said, you select curves as guides, right? And then from that point on, I got something that let's get rid of the noise, that looked like this. They are kind of like a little bit split. They still get like a little bit of a funny shape. I don't know how to control the rotation of it, right? But they're definitely obeying better. There's still some orphans right in the middle in there for some reason, you know, but they are definitely obeying better than what I had before. So they're going inside and out, but for some reason they're not round, right? Like they kind of like go flat for certain angles like that. But that's when the noise came handy to actually just like help to inflate them and create like more randomness to the entire thing. So this is the main noise in here. So it creates like those fat little rolls. And then the second one is for flyaways. It's adding plenty of them actually, right? It looks a little messy when you look from the close up like that. But in the renders, it actually works because I want that look of looking messy, right? Like kind of like has a lot of those strays all over the place. But that's basically what I did. I still have to find a solution to make sure that they're not going flat. You know, they're going a little bit more round. And one thing that I was thinking yesterday after I did this one, and I don't know if it's going to work, but I thought about doing this. You see, like that I have those kind of like almost like diamond shapes, right? I thought about like, what if I painted density mask? That basically like I would paint another map for those little circles. And I would paint completely black and then like just put the circle white in here with some space in between, another circle white, another space in between, another circle white, and try to force them into a cylinder. But I don't know if it would work because like seems like when it gets into those curves in here, it kind of like follows, it doesn't follow like the direction of it, you know, it doesn't follow the path, I would say. So it kind of goes kind of straight. So I don't know if it would work, but something to try, you know. And then the last thing is that to apply this color here, I just went to the guide itself, right? Remember we talked about this yesterday. I clicked the use region map and I just assigned the same map that I have assigned here to here. And then basically that alone forced the braids. If I remove it, let's remove the noise in here. If I remove the use region, that's what it does. It kind of like gets a little messy in there. So with region on and without it, so definitely the improvement, it gets things a little bit more separated, right? Instead of like, especially in this area here was pretty messy before. So that definitely helps, but the density is something I still have to test. But again, like the noise really helps to mess up that stuff and disguise the intersections in there. Everything gets more bulky, right? And more rounded. So that's the update for this stuff here. That's basically what I did. And then obviously when I was talking about yesterday, around this area here, I just decided to just tuck the hairs inside of this little chunk in here. And the transition doesn't look too bad, you know. It's like I said, if I hide the little cap in there, it should like look fairly okay. But I still can actually select a bundle of stuff and then basically like conform it to one of those guys here, and then select another bundle, conform to another one and another one, and then have a better transition at the end. But let's see, hair blend, hair, main hair, this one. This one should take a little bit to load. Okay, so basically what I did is it's like that, you know, it's like just tucked inside of it. See, I still have some orphans right in the middle in there. Most of the split is working in the back, right there. So I have to split. It's working fairly nicely actually, but there's always like a few orphans right in the middle in there, which I don't care because they're penetrating the skull, and I'm not gonna worry about them. But if I wanted to really conform them, either I can actually find the spots where they're coming from by selecting them. For example, we can do that by clicking like a sculpt, for example, and then just selecting a bunch of them. Let's try that. Let's do this. So you select just those guys here in the middle, for example, and see where they are coming from. So a bunch of them are coming from this area in the back of the head. So I can actually create a mask in there just to, you know, to control that better. But some of them are coming all the way from the front and they're just like going down in this area here. So in my ZBrush, I can just go in there and see if this area of the map, there is something funky in there and try to fix it, make sure that the colors are basically like it's a very harsh line between the green and the red to prevent that kind of stuff, you know. But yeah, a lot of ways to actually basically keep those ones selected and just edit them by shrinking the whole thing into a tiny little thing, you know, it's like transform everything into like peach fuzz and get done with it. That's another way to cheat it. Or if you want to fix it, you can just like select half of it and then just use like the comb brush and comb and tuck it in there, you know, somewhere. But yeah, like for what I need, I don't think I'm gonna worry too much, but I'm gonna try to at least fix this little area around here that's having most of the problem. I'm gonna try that later. But yeah, that's the scalp in there, and seems like things are working fairly okay for the braids. I still plan, you know, it's like a plan B would be just like cover it with a little hair piece in there and call it the day. So a couple of things I want to talk about is like, let's see, do like a overall recap of everything, I think would be good. Let's see, just to make sure that we are all in the same page. Let's see what I have here. Where is my Native American? Okay, this guy. And I have texture zone. Let's turn it off. Okay, so let's pretend like you have your model in there. You have all the hair assigned and everything, right? And you think about like, okay, I want to change the design completely at this point. I want to just like grow the, you know, the size of the cranium or make the chin bigger or whatever, right? All you have to do is basically like go to your ZBrush, make sure you export the same resolution. For example, like this guy here, if I click on it, I can tell that it has 69.304 polygons, right? So make sure you export ZBrush obviously with the same resolution. Then you bring this model back to here. So let's do this with my current model. Let's use this as an example. I know like for some of you guys, it's not gonna be, you know, anything new, but it's important to just like do a recap so we are all on the same page. So this is my super low res model. It's the one I use just for the morph tiger within ZBrush. I normally use the one subdivision level higher than this. So that's the number right there, 69306. And I'm gonna do this especially because yesterday I tweaked the eyes, right, and the eyelids, and I never brought the new model. So let's do the whole process here and make sure that, you know, it's like as if you guys are doing it at home. So you have your model in there and you just did a bunch of changes in ZBrush, right? So the first thing you're gonna do, you're gonna export this model in mid resolution. Let's go here to head 29, and this is gonna be MR instead of MR for mid resolution, right? My hard drive was sleeping, so it's gonna take a little bit, but then it's, from that point, it's gonna be faster, okay? And then go to the lowest resolution, I'm gonna export it again, but now as LR, so low resolution, done. Gonna go, the next step is gonna be to delete my morph target, delete, and then I'm gonna do those 3 steps that we mentioned a couple of times. So store, switch, import, and I'm gonna bring the low res. At this point here, I cannot go up in resolution, otherwise it's gonna screw up the whole thing, right? I just stay right here where I am. And then before I do the export, I'm gonna always save my file. This is actually a very important step because there is a problem that happens that ZBrush corrupts the file during the export of the map. So if you're using the multi-map exporter, because it's basically like a series of scripts that are basically running in there. It's not like something that was programmed into ZBrush, right? It's just like running scripts in the background. Sometimes it gets a little confused, you know, it's like, I don't know if it runs out of memory, whatever it happens, but there is some dirt in there in the code that ends up like corrupting the file. And then if you save your file at that point, basically like you're gonna be saving a corrupt file. And if you don't realize that, from that point on, you know, it's like you might have to roll back a bunch of versions to recover, you know, what you did. I'm gonna show you what it does and how to identify it when it's corrupted, so you know if it happens on your side, and it's most likely it's gonna happen on your side. So if I go to the Z plugin and I try to export the displacement map here, let's just set up everything for displacement. If you want texture map, you just click in there. I don't need it at this point. I'm gonna export in 8K. The map border I'm using is 10, just in case. I noticed some people are having some micro seams between the UDIMs because of, you know, they're using 4 for the map border. So I cranked that one to 10 just to have a little bit more of a buffer and prevent, you know, the problems in there. The magic button has to be pressed, so switch morph target has to be on. And then everything else here is what I have. So like the subdivision level is gonna be from subdivision 2 all the way up, because that's the matching resolution I'm gonna have in Maya. And then adaptive 4, 0 for this one, 32 in XR. The last thing you have to check around here, it's basically this file names. And this is basically like, you're gonna set this up like just once, right? So we're gonna switch to TIFF, override if you want to override. And the most important setting is this one here. So by default, I think ZBrush starts like this, right? So you just click a couple of times until it switches to UDIM. And that's basically what you're gonna have to do. And then what happens here is once you click the create all maps, ZBrush renames the subtool to output something. And then if it gets out of sync, once the process is finished, you check if the name of your file, of your subtool is still the same, head, blah, 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 because it should rename back to the original name. If at the end of the process, you got that little box saying like, oh, the process is finished, blah, 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 and you clicked on that and you look in here and it says output 0, output 1, or whatever it names, then you know that scene is busted. So don't save the scene at that point, because you already saved before you start the export process. That's why I saved right there. So we can actually load the file and just export straight away without having to do the morph target, blah, 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 right? But try not to ever save the scene after you got the subtool renamed to output something. That's completely busted. Probably your UVs are destroyed too. You know, most of the time the UVs are completely destroyed. So I already have my new mesh that I exported, the middle resolution one. So I'm gonna export those maps. So everything is set. I'm gonna just create all maps, and this goes straight to that the directory here that we created was in the first class, right? When we mentioned like how to create this using Maya. So Maya created most of those folders, other than OBJ and ZBrush and reference that we create by hand. But the source image was created by Maya. So I always save the maps in there, because this is the default folder that Maya looks for, maps. Even if you know, you got something, you know, maps all over the place and stuff, if you put maps inside of the source folder, Maya is more likely is gonna try to find them in there, you know. So I'm gonna save, and then it's gonna start the process of exporting the maps. So then the new displacement map should match the little membrane that I sculpted in the eyelids yesterday, and the little flat plane that I added in there as well, right? So we're gonna need that for the new renders. And then meanwhile, let's do that thing about pretending that you did a lot of changes in your model, and now you have to bring everything back in here, and you already have all your XGen set, right? Let's do that. The steps are very simple. You're just gonna import your new model. So you have your model in there. Gonna import. Make sure when you import this set to OBJ. And if you set this one time, it should be saved forever in there, right? But make sure you have single object. I'm gonna click import, and I'm gonna find my OBJ, and then that's gonna be the low resolution one. Actually, the middle resolution one. The low is just for the morph flag and ZBrush. So the mid res, and I'm gonna import it. So that should be the last thing that's gonna appear in here. So it should be this one around here. So poly surface, whatever it is, right? So this is the last one. And this one should have a tiny little difference around this area here. Those changes we did yesterday. So you can see the difference right there. So I'm just gonna scroll down, scroll up, and I'm gonna control click. So first thing, like you be able like to bring the new model, right? Click the new model first, and then you scroll all the way to where your old model is. The old model is the one that has all the XGen assigned to it, right? You're gonna press Control and click on it as well. So both are selected now. And then at this point, you just have to create the morph target. So you're gonna go to Modeling, Deform, gonna click the little option box, blend shape, and then you put a name that's very easy to see what it is, Gaga. And then my settings here is just like local. There's nothing here, it's just automatic. And local, and just gonna create. So I got my Gaga in there. So if I scroll it all the way up, now this model is matching the new one, right? And you notice that before I did this, it turned off. I actually turned invisible all my groom, right? Because if the groom is visible, if you try to do this, it's gonna be a slug. You know, it's like you're gonna try to do the morph target, it's gonna be super slow because it has to calculate all the hair to move in position, right? So you're just gonna do this with everything off, all the XGen off. And then once it's all the way set to 1, you're gonna go to your edit, delete by type, not to be confused with delete all by type. Don't ever do this one because this one is gonna screw up your XGen. Just do this one because this one is gonna be dealing just with the objects I have selected. So you're gonna go to delete by type, history. And then at this point here, you see like my Gaga is gone. It's not there anymore. So that means it's baked. So I can just click this new model that I just brought in here. So the newest one, and I gotta delete it. And this one should be matching the other one. So there is the little membrane that I sculpted. Everything should be good. Now, if you did the steps correctly, if you switch back to your Peach Fuzz, for example, you should be matching perfectly the new surface. Well, all this stuff here should be following the structure. It doesn't matter how big the changes are. You can change the chin to be like twice as big. The whole thing should follow the surface correctly, you know. Same thing for eyelashes, especially eyelashes since we changed that area quite a bit. That's what we want to check. Still in place right there. Okay. And then the upper eyelashes, still following the structure. And then the stubble, same deal. Stubble I still need a mask, right? Because going all the way up there, I want to actually reduce a lot of the intensity around this area here. And then maybe make them a little bit more spread out and a slightly thicker, just a tiny bit thicker. Really tweak that. And I added most of that kind of like in the goatee area here and some very spread out ones in there. If I hide the Peach Fuzz, you can see it. So those are very spread out. So the way I did those ones more spread out like this, basically like I created the mask first, right? I selected a bunch of polygons, assigned the description, and then I did that transfer thing, right? Description, preset export. So I exported first, then I deselected those faces, selected the whole object, and then I did the import again, right? That little trick to actually unlock all the other polygons. And then once those are transferred to here, then I was able to just use this one here for like a place tool and then create those ones by hand, actually using the tablet. It's like pick, 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 like clicking very fast and adding those random ones in between like that. So that's basically what I did to create those. And eyebrows are still that mask that I don't want to talk about because they're just like those ones I blocked the first time, right? Which are not cool for his character. I want to build brand new ones. And then for the main hair is the stuff we were talking about all those days, you know, it's like how to create the how you call like the flyaways, right? Like create a noise with the very, very tight little specks in there just to get some of them like really strongly breaking up the silhouette and all that stuff. So the other things here that we gonna talk is like, it's some of the questions come up sometimes, you know, it's like, and then I know that you guys are watching the classes and everything, but some of them were kind of like at the very beginning and we kind of like forgot a little bit. So I'm just gonna, this is all like recap at this point. So just before you can render anything, make sure your settings are something similar to this in Arnold. Like I have mine set to 9. I would say like start with 6, right? And then everything 3, 3, 3, and 2 for the last one. 9 if you want to get a little bit more like you know, sharper details, like smoother details, I would say. For the filter, try not to go too low with this, otherwise it gets very crispy. And like I mentioned before, I mean, like the skin starts getting kind of like this rock kind of look instead of something that's softer, you know. So keep it a little bit softer. And then the other things here, my bucket size is the smallest possible, so I can render multiple, you know, tiny little squares at a time. And then also that whole thing about like rendering multiple different camera angles, right? You see I have set up in here very quickly here, just like recap that as well. I have set up like a bunch of different cameras like that. Those are basically like the angles I'm rendering and posting on Instagram and stuff. And then to do that, you know, if I created like, for example, 12 different angles like I have here, every time you create a brand new one, you can just like add to this list here. So under the render settings, there's a start frame and then the end frame. I'm gonna put all of them in there. So for example, if I go to bed, I can just like leave this stuff rendering, right? And just in the morning, I have all the renders. But for this stuff to show up, you have to make sure that you switch from single frame, right? If you have single frame, it goes dark like that. You switch like to frame and then extension, and then this one opens up. And then the resolution, obviously, for Instagram, I normally use 1,000, sometimes 900 if I want faster, right? But not much higher than this. This is basically like all the renders I post is like all 1,000. And that's about it. Like, so once you have, for example, like you find another angle here you want to render, right? All you have to do is just click View, select Camera, and then press S like send. It's going to create a keyframe right here. You see all in red, and they're all keyframes. And then thank God that they finally added this to Maya, which is like if you go to rendering, and then you click your render, this render sequence is fairly new, like maybe like 2 versions ago. And then if you click the option box, now it's super easy, right? Like you just say like, okay, render this camera, make sure it matches the camera you're looking. Sometimes it shows a different one like this. Then it's not gonna render what you want. So make sure they match. And then once that's matching and you already set up like that range in there in the render settings, you just have to do like render sequence, you know? And then if you have this little checkbox in here, that means that every time it renders one completely, it saves in the buffer of the render view, right? So you can actually go there and then scrub through and then see all the renders that are there. If you just want to render straight to the disk without saving the buffer, you can just like turn it off, and that's about it. The last thing here, just the part of our recap, is like the properties of the object itself, right? So if you click the object and you press Control A, you're gonna have to pay attention to those settings here, right? The first one is like obviously like the render status, right? Render stats. Make sure that you have everything checked in there. If you have anything off here, for example, the model is not gonna either like it's not gonna have shadows or whatever, right? And then, but the most important one for us is always Arnold. So I'm gonna click Arnold, and just in case if you guys didn't realize, like if you render like transparent objects, for example, the cornea, make sure that the opaque is off, right? But if they're solid objects like the skin, you always click on. That is necessary because like if you want to render something that's transparent, you want to make sure that the shadow is transparent. Otherwise, you're going to be rendering like a piece of glass, and then the shadow is going to be black, right? To make sure that that translates correctly in there. The next step is that one, just part of the recap as well. I always, every time I have a new object in the scene that has subsurface scatter assigned to it, I give a name. And this name I share across the board because if they don't match, or if you don't have a name here at all, it creates some kind of like shadow in between like 2 different objects with subsurface. It creates like a harsh line in there. And if you have the shared SSS or whatever name you want to do, as long as they match across the board for all the objects in the scene, it's going to create a blend. So it's a much more elegant. For example, if you have like the teeth is a very clear example of that. If you have the teeth intersecting with the gums, if you don't have those objects matching their names, you're going to have like a harsh line. It's not going to be completely integrated. But if you have that, then it's going to look like a transition. It's pretty nice, you know, like it's just soft. It's almost like everything becomes part of the same subsurface gathering. And then subdivision, that's the number I normally use. I'm using 4. But if you're using like for example, like the renders I did today, right? I don't have any super close up other than this one here, right? That's kind of a close up. But if you have like a super close up, something more like, let's see, no, this guy's still pretty. Let's see this guy, right? Not that. So interesting to see with that helmet and then see with the actual hair. It's so much better. Like there's no way you can just like have an idea about how it's gonna look like. So this guy here, right? So if you're rendering something like this close, or even closer, something like this, and you switch like from 4 subdivisions to 5, you're definitely gonna see a difference. You're gonna see stuff changing. You're gonna see more definition within the pores and all that stuff. But unless you're rendering like this close, if it's something like this, you're probably not gonna notice a lot of difference between 4 and 5. But you're definitely gonna notice difference between like, let's say like 2 subdivisions and then 4, right? It's you're definitely gonna see that. So make sure you have like at least 3 here, but I would say like an ideal number would be 4. And obviously like make sure your model is not super high res in the base mesh here, right? So it doesn't crash like for lack of memory. So Catmull Clark, for adaptive space, I always use object. And then for the UVs, I always use linear. So it's not smooth from ZBrush, everything is a square. And then for displacement attributes, I use a height that's 1. If you want to create like an exaggerated version of your displacement, for example, like you did the pores and you thought that you did like too shallow, the pores look too shallow, right? You can always crank this number here to 1.2, for example, 1.3 to exaggerate the displacement effect. At least as a concept, you know, proof of concept, because other than that, it would be better if you actually went to ZBrush and actually made everything deeper again and re-exported the maps, right? But as a proof of concept, you can just like crank in here and see if it looks better, or if they're too high, you can just bring it down, you know. And then the 0 value is basically 0 because we are matching ZBrush. Auto bump is on, so if you have auto bump in here, that means you're gonna have to have your auto bump on in the Arnold render settings in here as well. So let's see if I go to, oh, I don't have mine. So now I have it. It adds more render time, but at the same time, it really scatters inside of the bump, right? Who was asking yesterday? Leo was asking yesterday, actually. He was saying like, about like the subdivision levels, right? Like he said about like 4 in here, right? So we're using 4. And then what happens, you know, if you have like HD geometry that subdivides all the way to 8, right? What happens is that Arnold is going to subdivide the mesh itself 4 times. And then after that, everything else is going to go and land into auto bump. So when that happens, for example, like there's a lot of stuff that's being created within those next levels. For example, after level 4, it's going to be like level 5, 6, and 7, or whatever it is. It's going to be all bump, and the bump by default is not going to be scattering. So if you have like tiny little dots and tiny little surfaces that are created with that super high res that's over the physical subdivision of the mesh, then the only way to see them calculated at subsurface is to click this guy here. And it even has a warning there: enable this check, triple shader evaluation in SSS. So basically, like it's gonna calculate. That's basically what it's saying here, like this evaluation here. So probably this SSS is gonna turn into 9 or something. So maybe you can even like, maybe if you reduce to 2 in here, maybe it helps if you have the auto. I don't know, I have to check it, but I normally keep at 3. So that should add more time for my renders now, because I didn't notice I had it off before, but that's about it. And then for the ray depth, I mean, like I always crank this one, just make sure that I have enough ray tracing to just go across multiple transparent surfaces, right? So if you have like a face, it has to go through that face and has to come back as well. So it's almost like, I think like every face is basically considered 2 bounces because it has to go through it both ways. So if you have like the cornea and some other transparent object inside, and then you have to reach the iris, so you're gonna have to have at least like 4 for the ray depth in here. Otherwise, you're not gonna see through the transparent stuff. You can even test, you know, like if you're doing like a render time, real-time render, you can just put like right there to show the close-up of the eye, and try to render with like 1 for ray depth. It's probably gonna look black, And then if you start increasing like 2, 3, 4, at some point you're going to start seeing through and seeing the iris. So it's yeah, that's the way it works. So that's like an overall recap. I think the most important stuff, you know, is like what's needed from ZBrush, the settings of ZBrush and all this stuff. We got the map exported, so we got the displacement map. We already have the mesh matching that map. That's the one we just added here with the blend shape. And now I'm gonna just reassign that map. So click the object. You can go all the way here. I'm gonna have a bunch of nodes, or you can just go straight to your hypershade as well. It's normally the last one is the shader. So I'm gonna click on it. And then if I just click this little guy here at the top of the node, I'm gonna go straight to the displacement material, right? It's gonna expand it here. And then I'm gonna plug the new one, 29. And since I already have my Mari tile switched here, so it's gonna import like the 5 files automatically, right? It's gonna add the tag in there, udim. That's all good. By default is off, so that means it's gonna bring just the first map. So make sure that you have that one set to udim. And then under Arnold, just a reminder, I'm not using TX textures, but you can if you're running out of memory. So my case here, I'm not, so I keep that on. And then that's about it. So now if I render, I should get that little membrane thing around the eye. I don't know how fast it's gonna be to render, but let's see if you get something like this. I can even reduce maybe like to 8 here just in case. And let's try to do a little render. And then after this, I'm gonna jump right into taking a look at the Ray Harryhausen. Let's try to get your shader in there. And then you guys think about anything you wanna ask me. And at the end, I can show you like the post-processing, the kind of filters I'm using for this guy here. Just break down everything for you. Did I tell you about I think I did, like the HDRI maps I'm using for the scene, right? The way that I set it up, that's kind of like one doesn't, yeah, it's just for specular. Yeah, so, okay, cool. Okay, so that's plugged. Let's see, it's gonna start rendering here soon, at some point. So those are the raw renders, right? Like the color, I normally correct a little bit in using Photoshop. And like I said the other day, I mean, the eyes, you see how yellow they are? That's kind of like on purpose, right? Like we just added that little node in there in mind just to colorize them. To add more character, you know, it looks like, I don't know.
Sorry.
Yes.
Where did you add the color of the eyes again?
Oh, I can show you. Yeah, I can show you after this little render here. Let's
okay,
just
thank you.
Yeah. Let's just get like a close up around here. I think what's happening here as well is that my little tier line might be busted because it's not conforming to the eye just yet. But I want to see if the membrane that we did yesterday is going to do anything.
Also, what did you say about the HDR? Sorry, man, I don't.
Oh, sure, yeah. So for this scene that I have in here, sometimes like I was mentioning the other day, if you have like an HDRI that it looks perfect, the lighting looks great. And you're getting the shadows like soft the way you want. They're coming a little bit from the top. You're getting very nice shadows and everything. But you look at the eyes and the eyes look dead because there is no specular hitting the eyes at all. So sometimes you can just add, of course, like area lights, right? And get like a fake little reflection. But if it's an outdoor scene like that, I prefer to actually find an HDRI that has very nice reflections and then use both HDRIs at the same time. But the one that has the reflection, I turn off everything other than reflection. So just keep the reflection on, and then basically like it doesn't affect the subsurface or anything else, you know. And then that way I get the best of both worlds. I get a scene that's kind of like a mix of the two things, you know.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Let's see.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Where did you plug the color map for the face into the shader?
The color map for the face. Oh, you mean the albedo color?
Yeah, yeah.
Sure, yeah. Let's take a look as well. Let's see how that plays out. It's not like a, you know, I'm like not super close in here, but you can see the tiny little line in there. So that tiny little line is going to be actually covered with the tier line that's going to be covering it. But the thing is, like, the tier line that I stole from the previous model is not conformed to this one just yet. So, but you can tell that the little line that we sculpted yesterday, that's the membrane I was mentioning right there. You can even, like, if you want to be super precious about it, you can actually paint a little mask in there, for example, and you can use that to control the amount of subsurface. You can get that area very, very translucent, almost transparent, actually. And that can help with the blending in there. But in this case here, it's just the same scatter as everything else. I'm gonna probably need a mask like that for the ears, because the ears are looking a little bit too red in some spots. But yeah, this is working very nicely around there. But you see, like, this is out of place. So the tier line in there is out of place because I never adjusted to this model here. So this is something we can do next. So let's just finish this little render. And then let's adjust it and see how it looks like with a decent tier line. I can hear my computer going like turbines. Oh, by the way, like I posted the other day on Facebook, like the battery, like a lithium battery I got for the emergency stuff instead of getting a generator. Man, that thing freaking rocks. It's like a 1500 watts battery. It's all lithium. And I charged it fully, and I plugged the mini fridge I got, and this fridge is ran like full over 120 hours in one single charge. So like it's gonna be good for 5 days of emergency. So I'm so thrilled with that. The next time we have fires, and here we are kind of okay now. Get back in the car, you know, it's like even run a TV on it. Okay, so let's take a look at the tier line here. Let's just save this. Select camera, and then I'm gonna save this as another frame, so I can actually go back to it. I think I'm overriding something that was there before. Let's see. Yeah, so let's get to this one, and then if you get like the back bracket here, you press a couple of times, you should actually have stored the previous. Yeah, so back and forth. You can store actually the last camera position. So just go back to that, and now I can create a new frame on 13 here. So that one should match the same angle. So let's look at the tier line. See where it is right now? It's completely out of place, right? Because like I said, it came from another model. So the first thing I'm gonna do with it, just subdivide this guy, press 3 for it. Let's make sure it's round. And remember that intersection I mentioned before, right? Doesn't matter too much because we are really going super transparent starting here until it disappears completely. So this should be like a perfect transition, and so nothing to worry too much about it. I might actually pull it out a little bit and bring the carunculum more out. And I have to do a better sculpting around this area as well. It's a little deep in there. I can actually improve that. But let's take a look at the tier line. So I'm gonna press 1 just like to unsubdivide it. So it's like a completely square kind of surface like that. And then I'm gonna do like a kind of like a raw or like a very rough change in position here. So it's gonna make sure that I have it center. So I'm gonna center my pivot. I'm gonna bring it out so I can see the entire thing. This one here, like I said before, this is BS. You don't need that. So it's like I can just like eliminate this junk in here. I mean, like ideally, if you want to do renders from below, you want to create like a circle that goes all the way around, including here, and you have the tier line against like the entire surface around it. But for me, it's always a little bit overkill because I don't have a lot of renders from this angle, and even when I do, there's a lot of shadow that's coming from the lid itself and then the eyelashes, you know. So I don't see a lot in there, but I might actually do like create a little kind of like a torus and then just delete a few faces and start and create something that's generic I can use in other eyes, you know. So let's just tweak this guy here. And to do that, what we can do is to make this object live. So to make it live, I'm gonna click the surface and then click the little magnet. Go back to my, where is it now? I can't find it. Oh, there you go. It's all the way there. So let's go back here and then let's get a little closer. And I'm gonna click this one, vertice, And I'm gonna try to snap some of those vertices right against the eyelid. So I'm gonna go here, and get it around there. So this external border in there first. And it all depends on how close you want to get to the eye, right? I can get a little closer. And it's snapping straight to the surface because it's live. I have to be careful the way I'm moving here, otherwise it's gonna go everywhere. Right there. Just make sure that it goes pretty much like conform with the entire thing. So around here, you can either like go further down or just end around there or whatever you want to do. You know, it's like sometimes I try to fade them. I don't have a lot of them after the carunculum there. So like for this one here, like the middle one, I'm going to do kind of like a similar thing. I'm going to try to go with it pretty close to the edge between the eye and the lid, right? So I'm going to go really close to it, almost at the edge right there. I'm just snaps funny right there. This one as well. Oh, this one got lost. I can get it again. Oof, this is snapping all the way around. Well, if it's not working, I can just do manually later. Let's try with this guy here. Let's see if it snaps correctly. Yeah, sometimes it gets a little lost and you have to. There you go. Almost like if I go towards the eyeball, it kind of gets lost, so I have to pull all the way back. And then once I have it kind of like around here, then I can actually go again and do it. It's like Maya stuff, you know, it's like those pet peeves, right? Stuff just like doesn't work the way you expect sometimes. Look, it gets all crazy. And then if it shows up in there, now if I click it here, now it works. It's funny. And then to reach the other guys in here, like kind of to the side, you just click this one, for example, and just press arrow to the right, and then it should capture that one for you. I gotta get that one. And then this one I can go arrow top, right? Like just press up. And then I capture that one as well. And now we have this stuff like all wrapped around, and it's like snapped close enough to the eyelid, right? And those guys here, like I said, it has to be as close as possible to the eyeball. Now we can just make like turn off the magnet, right? And you can make the eyeball magnet now. So magnetic. So click that one, and now we're going to snap those guys into the eyeball. We're going to make sure that it's not too high. It has like enough just around here. It's a super simple geometry, right? Like it's just like a little, you know, 3-side 90-degree kind of thing. Same thing as doing here. Look, you have to do it first and then you release and then, oh, look, and then it works. Weird. Yeah. It's almost like it's better if you click twice already so you know it's going to happen. There you go. So that. If it's too high, you can always bring a little lower, right? Like, so it's not, that transition is not super big. And what I mentioned before is still valid here if you want to go and really refine those things to make sure that the transition between this, like this little liquid in here, the tear line and the eye is perfect. You can always use like a ramp map, you know, if you have those UVs completely straight, a ramp map that disappears completely, both the transparency and the object, the geometry itself, around here, like you know, it's like at the edge and in the bottom as well. So all that's going to be visible is something right in between in here, and then that way you're going to have like a perfect transition. You know, I never did for my models, but it's kind of stuff, you know, it's like I keep teaching and I never have the time to actually go back and do like better tweaking. But I plan to do this, you know, I plan to actually refine a lot of this stuff and have like smarter objects I can reuse. You know, for example, like this case here is just the bottom, right? But I'm really planning to do one that goes all the way around and make it easier for me. So now we have everything snapped. Let's just turn off the snap in there, the magnet. And now I can subdivide this thing again. Actually, the subdivision here, if you press 3, is just like this for the viewport, right? The real subdivision we're going to be using is the one that comes from Arnold. So in the properties of the object, make sure your Arnold in here has subdivisions. So I have like 3 subdivisions, not too much, right? And then, why do I have pinned corners? I don't even need pinned corners. It should be just like linear. All right, it doesn't matter. It's super low res, not even gonna affect it. Let's keep it linear. And let's do object. And yeah, I don't need auto bump in here because, you know, it's just for subdivision. We're not adding any displacement. Now for the material for the tier lines, I'm using, this is just a recap. Obviously, we already talked about all the values in here when we're exploring the eye. It's just as a reminder that I'm using under geometry a bump map. And the bump map looks like this, just like a regular noise from Maya, Perlin noise, and those are the parameters I'm using right there. So if you look at the UVs that I have, they look like this, right? So at this point, they're not straight. So if they were straight, then you definitely could use like the ramp I mentioned before. If they're like this, you definitely cannot use a ramp, but you can always use a map that you paint in ZBrush if you want to, you know. But really, really simple object right there. So let's go back in here to that same angle we had, this stuff here, right? And see if that line now is going to improve a little bit, which we hope it will. And I hope the camera is matching as well, because I hope I matched the camera correctly.
Chris, how do you batch render in Arnold?
Oh, batch render? Oh, I just talked about it. It was like the render sequence.
The render sequence.
So you're gonna go to the rendering tab, right? Like on the left, and then select the rendering. And then under the render, you're gonna scroll down like midway is gonna have like render sequence. And you press the option box in there.
Oh yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah, and this one is gonna basically obey whatever you have for your render settings. So if you put the range of 1 to 17, it's gonna render just that range. Just make sure that you have the same camera selected.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. Thank you.
No
Because
problem.
I was like, normally you had the animation tab under common.
Yeah.
But not on this one. But, all right, cool. Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, I changed the camera, man. Look at that. I thought I matched the camera. But it's not exactly the same. It's a little bit closer now. But you can see the line in there. So now it has a perfect match for it. And if you have enough bump, you know, in this case here is looking a little too straight because my the reflection that I'm using, you can see in the eye in there, is a very broad reflection. It's kind of like an ocean. And then it's like it kind of like propagates, right? It's not like a window, for example. If it was just a window, the window would be picked by the little bumps in this little surface in here, and you would see just tiny little specks. Another way I can do this to break it up like even more, I can actually crank the bump, the height of the bump, so I can get this more broken up as well. But right now it's kind of like it's just like a, you know, it's like a white line in there, instead of looking more like the, you know, what we have for the Rick Baker guy. Let's see. Oh, there you go. Instead of this, right, you just see the tiny little highlights in there, because see, it's just a window, right? So the window is just gonna reflect into the bumps in there. You're gonna see just tiny little highlights. But in this case here, it's the entire thing. So it's gonna run across. So you're gonna get those very broad highlights like that. So that's what's gonna happen. But yeah, it's working. So at least we have that one in position. And because I'm working with asymmetry, probably if I duplicate this one and put the other side, it's not going to look perfect, but it's going to be close enough that I can just like go again and put some adjustments in there. But yeah, that's how I go about this stuff, you know. And again, like if you want more specky, then you can just increase the height of the bump and you should get like more broken up specular in there. So let's take a look at the other stuff. Let's save the scene here because I'm not saving for a little while. And then let's explore some other stuff. Let's look at the clothing for Ray, which is nothing super fancy, but you know, if it helps you, I'm happy to do it. Let's see. And then I'm going to be talking about some post-processing and the little plugins I use. If you guys don't have like Lightroom installed, Lightroom is actually excellent, you know. Sometimes I use Lightroom for stuff that I need like some kind of like more photographic filters and stuff. But I'm gonna tell you, after I bought this this collection of plugins, Alien Skin, they're really nice, man. Like, because they have like this huge library, like I mentioned before, of cameras. You know, it's like they simulate the films. This stuff, like you see the line in there, that stuff I did yesterday looks very, very kind of fake. I'm gonna have to eat up a few of them in here so it doesn't have this straight line like the black line in there. They're gonna make this a little bit more random. But let's take a look at this. Let's open that scene for you. The Ray Harryhausen, which should be. Well, if you guys missed it, we're gonna be talking about clothing. But like I said, it's nothing fancy. It's just like whatever I did for this guy. Let's see if I can find it here. Chris, personal projects, Ray.
Hey Chris, can I just ask a quick question about intersection and subsurface scattering?
Yes.
You mentioned yesterday, is that something we should really avoid? Like the part of the lips, should it really have no intersection?
Definitely, man. Like especially like if you have, I would say like if it's deep enough, it's something that's already kind of like after that little line, the connection between the two lips. If it's like behind it, don't worry too much about it. But if it's the lips in there, like they are kind of intersecting right at the division between the two of them, then I would worry about it. I would kind of like try to keep them slightly separate, you know, and then slowly just bring them closer. Because like if the intersection is not something that like it goes too deep and it penetrates like too deep, one surface to the other one, it should be fine. But if it's barely touching, it should be, you know, should be totally fine. You know, it's like, but if they go too deep, like if the penetration goes like, let's say, 2 millimeters or 3 millimeters, like in real world, right? You're probably gonna get like some weird artifacts and like probably like some reds that's gonna start happening, you know?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Especially the lips, man. They're very, very tricky. So yeah, so this is the stuff I was talking about. Like he was asking about the shader that I was using for this guy here. Which, by the way, I really love to finish this model, man, because I think he deserves such a cool character and everything. But it's such like it. Both him and my wife, they're such in bad shape in terms of like the amount of stuff I need to do to make it pop, you know, including the clothes. You see, like this is just blocked. It's like super simple. But let's talk about the shaders. Let's see. I always want to take like those breaks, you know, it's like between now and January when the classes start again. And then just like do some work, but then I end up like, okay, but that's also a great opportunity to just rest. What about that? What about resting? And then I end up like not doing stuff. But I'm gonna force myself. I have to finish a couple of those portraits, man. Instead of like having 300 of them unfinished. Let's see. Okay, coming up. There you go. I think Ray's hair is a mess, and if I'm not mistaken, I was just like winging it without even using many curves. I might have some curves there, but definitely not using the area masks or anything like that. There is also a model that I started like a long time ago. That's the Giger portrait as well. That also looks very messy. Like the hair looks messy, the face is not quite there. It's another one that I really want to go back to and push forward. So much stuff to jiggle. Oh no, this one I have some curves. I might need just like some, yeah, it's like better control, I guess. Yeah, and these eyebrows are a mess. Look at that. Woohoo. Let's see. Here, it's double eyebrows. Guide. Yeah, so you have to go back to this guy for sure. So the clothing, as you can tell, I'm using a lot of peach fuzz in here, right? So same way you're doing the peach fuzz for the face, just with more noise. So I have those tiny little microfibers in there like that. And they might be a little bit too strong as well. I have the peach fuzz in the face and the stubble. Hair, the nose in there. Same stuff we spoke about. Much more peach fuzz, by the way, than what I have right now. I might copy the settings from this guy here. Looks more interesting. Okay, but talking about this stuff, let's see the hypershade. Always cool to to open old files and just look at it, because you kind of remember stuff you did, and it's like, man, why I'm not doing that again. Okay, so for the shader, let's take a look. So the suit, what I have plugged in here is, oh, where is it? Sorry. So let's take a look here from the beginning. Let's see if I have anything subsurface. I don't think I have any subsurface. So subsurface is 0. So everything is coming from the base. So basically, like I'm using 0.8, so it's not fully, it's like it's not full on diffuse. So it's a little bit less than that. There's a little bit of metallic feel to it to create this type of, it's kind of like a satin kind of effect, right? You see a little metallic in there. Another thing you can always do when you're going to start a new clothing, you can always click this preset in here, and there's a bunch of stuff in there you can check. So for example, let's see, I don't think they have velvet. See, like if you do like a velvet and you replace completely, then you're going to get something similar to this probably with some metallic feel or whatever it is. And then basically those are my settings. If you're going to copy it, you can screenshot later when you're doing the when you're watching the video again. So 800, and then I'm using this guy here. It's a plate map that I found like online, I think. And then I just I copied and I tweaked the color of it in Photoshop. Oh, I cannot zoom in here, but that's basically what it is. I got this one here because it's not a picture, it's basically like a graphic, right? So it has like everything is very well defined and perfect. So I kind of like prefer that one. And then if I want to create like some bump, the bump is going to be pretty perfect. It's going to use just little lines in there. And I think that's what I did. I used the same stuff as a bump, For the specular, I'm using a little bit of slightly greenish blue to go with that color. And then the weight's not very, very high. I mean, like the specular is very low actually. Index of refraction is there. Roughness, it's a little high, right? So it's not like a sharp spec. It's a very broad spec. And I think I'm using, so there's no transmission because it's not transparent. There's no surface. The coat, I'm not using any coat, so ignore all that stuff. And then the shin is the one I'm using quite a bit. And I do the same for Stan Winston. This is the one that actually simulates the microfiber, kind of the micro fuss, like when you look at like kind of Fresnel effect. This is very cool because when you're using this like for a face, you don't want to go too high. You want to go, for example, like 4 times less than this, maybe like 0.03 for a face, because you also have the peach fuzz. It's just to add an extra layer of oil or micro peach fuzz, But this is basically what I'm using here to create this effect that has a little bit of a Fresnel in it. So that's going to be one important one. There is no emission. And then the last thing here in this shader is basically the bump. If we're going to bump, it's basically the plate. So it's basically that same map. Actually, I think I tweaked it in Photoshop as well. Yeah, I think what I did is because remember like how the map looked like was just like some dots were white and some are very black. I brought the same map in Photoshop and I brought some of the whites down and some of the blacks up. So they all look a little bit more on the gray side. So the bump actually behaves the same across the board independently of the color. Otherwise the color, just the whites would pop, right? And the blacks would be super low. So I think that's what I did in there to kind of like level them all. And that's about it, man. So that's basically the shader I used. And then that combined with the peach fuzz is what makes like the whole thing work, So you look at let's see if I have another one that's more like a zoom here. Let's see this one. It's a little closer. Yeah, so if you look closely here, you can see the tiny little bump map. And it's basically affecting all the white and the black stuff as well. It's funny because it doesn't seem like it's subdivided in there. And because of the blur, it's not even showing that much. Huh, interesting. Look at that, so simple, man. I have to really beautify that whole thing. And this is one of the examples, you know, I started the whole process with the pores super deep, right? Like I normally do. But then looking at references, I was like, oh man, he's an older guy. So I was eliminating more and more every pass and adding more of those wrinkles, you know. And at the end, I ended up like with very little pores around this area and just like mostly like texture, you know. So that might happen with you guys as well. You know, like around there, like the pores, you can see some of them in here, but then here they're kind of like just like almost like wrinkles, you know, and then more pores around here. Those are looking a little fake as well. I'm gonna have to go and tweak and then break them up a little bit more. Here it looks nicer because it has some of those bigger wrinkles. By the way, this one for you, Roger, since you're doing the your model who is also a little older, this is kind of stuff I want you to do, you know. It's like pick a few areas that you can look at the references and see in his face if you can add some of the bigger wrinkles like this, combined with some a little bit smaller, you know. So you see like I have some small ones in here, but also visible. And then some of them I dig deeper, like those ones in here. Just to create this rhythm, you know. It's like this really definitely gonna add some age to your model. So yeah, it's a little plasticky. I look at him now, it looks a little cartoony, but yeah, I'm gonna go back to you. Don't worry, old man. And then here it's got like the sunburn I was talking about. They still look very rough. So don't look at too much about the lines in the forehead, but around here, you know. So that's the kind of stuff I made a little wider, right in between the wrinkles, and then a little bit more of like sunburn around here. So yeah, that kind of stuff, you know, the little visual reference. Someone else asked something about other model. What was that? Something else I can open for you guys to see. Yeah, anything you guys want to see, I don't mind like opening my files and just taking a look. But yeah.
I'd be kind of curious to see like the Stan Winston, like the groom, like.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Most of the guides, that's where I get kind of confused. Yeah.
Oh man, I think Stan Winston, I don't even have a lot of the guy. Let me see. I don't remember. But Stan Winston had this major problem that my XGen broke. And then when oh yeah, when I first opened the model, you're gonna see it looks busted. And then there are a few things I have to do every single time I open the file. It's not complex to fix. It's just like, man, why do I have to do this every time? I fix it, I save the file, and then when I open, it's busted again. Freaking XGen, man. Let's take a look. Okay, so you're gonna see his eyebrows. Prepare yourselves. It's gonna be funny. Ta-da! Look at that. No, actually, most of it are actually correct because sometimes this part explodes. So this is the part that's busted right there. So to fix that, check this out. I have my hair in there, and I don't even know which one is that. I think it's the peach fuzz actually. If I click the peach fuzz, and I click on the base, scroll down, and I just rebuild it. I fixed that, right? So for the goatee, same thing. So goatee, rebuild it, done, right? So now it looks correct. Now, if I save the file this way, when I open again, randomly, maybe both are gonna show up in the same spot busted, or sometimes the eyebrow is gonna explode out of nowhere for no explanation, and the other stuff is gonna be busted as well. I'm actually surprised I opened the file and the eyebrows were not busted, but it happens like very randomly. So let's see if I have anything for the hair itself. I don't think I have guides, man. Let's see. Main hair. Look at that. This was sculpted by hand. Oh, look, there's some crap going on in there in the back. So let's see, main hair, rebuild. Let's see if that fixes it. Yeah, it did. So basically, this was actually just groomed without any splines. It's like I just put the hair in there and started like just with the comb brush, just like brushing like brushing down and adding some noise and stuff.
Okay,
that's
cool.
Yeah, but today I think I would definitely use more guides than I did in here. But this was the first one. I was like, oh, I can just deal with it. Yeah, no guides at all.
Oh, thanks for showing me that, man.
Yeah, no problem. But I see, it seems like there's some guides in here. No, those are just selected and frozen hairs. I don't think they have guides at all. There's this in guide in here, which I don't think is doing anything. What is that? That's something for the beard? But it's actually not affecting the beard. I don't know what I did there. Something messy. Oh, and then since we are here, let me show you the shader as well for this guy here, Roger. So it's basically the same stuff. It's just like a little bit more of like a kind of a velvet kind of feel to it. So basically like this is the color I'm using, something like this, just like for the blue kind of look to it. And then I think the biggest one here, also this stuff you can actually screenshot at any time. Let's see, transmission, nothing. Subsurface, nothing. Coat, nothing. Chin, this one is like twice as big, right, as the other one. The other one is 0.120. This one is 0.267, and the roughness is bigger as well. So, so as a result, it's doing something more like this. Let's see. Rainbow. And Winston, here. Images. It's so funny to look like all the screenshots, like since the very beginning, since the very first sketches I did. Something like this, it doesn't even look like the guy or anything. And then, it's like blocking, like fairly cartoony, right? And then a little bit more advanced, and it's kind of interesting to just look those process back. And then let's look at this guy. So what I was trying to achieve with it was this kind of feel here, So you see like there's this kind of sheen to it. It's kind of like it's velvety, but also a little bit metallic in there. So I think that's what I was going for. I think I was looking at some reference that he looked like he had more of that kind of like Fresnel effect in there. And I think that's basically the look I was looking for. And then I have a displacement, right? So this is this little lines in here. There's some stitches and stuff. It's all displacement. And then everything else is obviously hand sculpted because it's pretty crappy. And then I have this bump map assigned as well, which is very similar to the other one. Actually, this one I think is just procedural. Yeah. So this one here has the cloth attributes, right? Like it's one of the Maya shaders. And then this one, basically, those are the parameters I'm using here. Let's see if I go like lower. Let's see what happens. Can I see it? No. Let's see, 0.50. That's what I had. Oh, I think it's my UVs actually, or UV coordinates. I think I'm basically like, yeah, I'm using 1,000 repetitions. So let's see what happens with the 4, so you can see how it looks like. So it looks like this. And then obviously you have like some wave. You can add some randomness to it. There's this randomness in here. Mine that doesn't have any randomness, but it would be cool actually to add a little bit of it. Just like play with it so it gets a little bit more wavy, but not too much. That's very useful, It's like you can use as a bump or even as a displacement to actually get the nicer, clothing kind of feel to it. And then if you do this in combination with the peach fuzz, then things work, The peach fuzz is very, very little. We're gonna see around the border right there. See the little hairs? And I try to make sure that instead of like using a hair color, is actually using the same shader that I have for the rest of the clothing. So it actually copies those parameters, So around the t-shirt, the same thing. So I have the t-shirt here, and I have those little guys breaking the profile in there. And then obviously the crazy little hairs in there, and peach fuzz and all the other stuff. And this guy has teeth, right? And the teeth is actually all attached. It's like in a single object. So people ask like, why you did that way? It was like, I did because I was experimenting with it, I saw some very good results done by some other artists who actually did this way. And I thought like, oh, why not? Because at work, I remember like some of our TDs having problems with trying to resolve that. You know, it's like when you have the T separate from the gums, having some artifacts created because of the intersection. And I was like, you know, if I do it this way, I'm gonna have like 0 intersection. So that's why I did it. It's easy to control, you know. But yeah, so let's take a look at some of the post stuff that I use normally, and then we can go back to anything you guys want to talk about. You can even talk about the industry. This beast. Oh my God, the industry, man. Okay, so let's start with one of those images without any treatment. So let's get, for example, like a raw version of this guy. Let's just copy it. So image, duplicate, and I close this one here. So normally what I do in Photoshop, when I bring any of my images, I just go to open one here. Let's pick one. Let's see, that one is native age, and then a number. Or I can simply pick one here that's one of the raw ones. No, actually, he is here. So native 7. So it should be this one here. So that's the untreated version, right? So it looks like this, the original one. And then this is the treated one here. Obviously, I could have like a more light to it as well. I think I added more light actually in Instagram before I posted it. I made more a little bit brighter. The thing is, like, my monitors are never calibrated enough, and then normally when I see my monitor it looks great, and then I post and I look at my phone, it looks super dark, you know, and then I have to compensate by using the Instagram filters. But so basically, like, if I bring something raw like this, the first thing I do, I convert it to 16 bits. So I go to mode 16 bits. And then automatically, you're going to create this color distortion in there, right? Because it's trying to use a local adaptation. So to preserve exactly what we had before, you can just switch from local adaptation to exposure in gamma. And that should go back exactly to where you are in 32 bits, but now in 16, right? I normally export everything from the render buffer from Arnold in EXR format. So it comes in 32 bits, just in case I need more control later. But for those Instagram posts, I convert to 16 because the plugin that I use, that's called Alien Skin Exposure, it only supports 16, it doesn't support 32, right? The exposure 4, I just recently bought it. I bought the upgrade, the update, but at the same time, I don't have all my filters from the X2, the filters I created manually, translated into X4 because according to their website, apparently I have to install X3 first. So I have to convert to X3 and then from X3 to X4. So there's a process before I can convert all my filters. So for now, I'm going to be using X2. So what I have here, if I click on that one, so that's basically like if I turn on and off. So there's the overall intensity here. That's the original. That's the treated, right? And then it's definitely like reducing the brightness. What I can do, I can actually increase this. I can actually add some, the exposure I'm actually reducing here. I can actually recover some of the exposure. The whole thing with this guy is that I'm always afraid that I'm gonna make the skin too bright and too normal. And I want to look like a little bit more, you know, like tan and stuff. And I'm always concerned that if I crank the exposure, you know, it's like it's gonna end up like looking like a white skin or something. So that's why I keep like decreasing that. But around here is basically like a similar intensity, is just the color corrected. And with like some fake stuff, like, you know, like faking the depth of field and things like that. So basically like those parameters, I'm creating everything by hand in here, but there are a bunch of like different ones you can do, like automatic stuff. This one, I actually saved this parameter. I can even save another one here. Every time you create something like this, like with your own settings, you just click this plus, and I can just select which one I'm gonna save. So Native American, and I can just put like native, if I'm 3 or 4, so let's put 4. So now in this tab here, I can just close it, and you're gonna see I have presets for some of my models. Michelangelo, blah, 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 Native American, right? So I have this preset saved right there. And then I have another one dark and a little bit darker, and You know, it's like this one, that's the brand new one. But the cool thing about this plugin is that everything is, you know, you can just change here. The cool thing that there are two types of, you know, blur that I use, like to create this effect of fake depth of field in there. One of them that's pretty cool, I'm gonna turn off the bokeh first. That's like tiny right there. There is this one here that's pretty nice. It's called Focus. And then it has this thing that's called lens wrap. So if I crank the opacity all the way up, right? And the radius all the way up, it starts to get it like this, right? But then if I use the lens wrap and start increasing it, it does that, you know? So you can just like play with the radius so you don't get too much, right? And you can get like, this is mostly like if you're using like sepia stuff and you want to create this blurriness around the whole thing with the sepia photograph, then this is the best one to use. It's pretty cool. Now, if you're trying to simulate depth of field, this one here is the one I use. That's basically, it simulates what Photoshop already does. I believe like the algorithm they're using exactly the same, like it's the same, even like the, you know, the interface is the same. So you can do that. So you have like the fall off in here. You can move stuff around like the center of the attention, right? So that one I use, because rendering with depth of field in straight from Maya, it can take a long time, right? And sometimes you don't want a perfect depth of field. You just want something that looks cool, you know, but it's not like a precise depth of field. So that's basically what I use for, you know, just to create this little dreamy kind of thing in there, but without being super precise, right? And then for color correction, normally I have this tendency, man, I think it's just a preference, that I tend to make things a little bit on the blue side. If I turn it off, the color correction here, you see that I started adding some blues, you know, so it brings up some of like, it preserves the reds and everything, but brings more interesting tones in my opinion. You know, it's like, instead of being like a boring, almost everything the same color, it kind of like separates things a little bit more, you know, for some reason. So just like I add a little bit of blue in there, and the density you're controlling here. So you can go all the way up and make like night, right? If you go this way and then you bring probably your exposure down, you're probably going to create a night scene, right? So something like that. And then let's bring this one back to 6 in here. So just add the tint of blue. But that's, again, like it's mostly like my personal preference in there. You guys probably like, some of you guys have a much better eye for color than I do. For some reason, I don't know, man. I have trouble sometimes finding a nice color balance and stuff. So I go by feeling, you know. That's why sometimes like people call it style, you know. Maybe it's not style. It's just because I'm incompetent enough to create something that looks a little bit more precise, you know. So I use my own gut feeling for this kind of stuff. And then here, like color saturation, I mean, like you can play with highlights. You can saturate the highlights or desaturate them. I tend to desaturate them. And then the midtones, you can saturate more or less. It's all controlled like independently, right? So it's pretty cool. You can get like very artistic freedom in there. And then same here for contrast and shadows and all that stuff. So there's a bunch of controls. And the interface is very similar to Lightroom, if you're familiar with Lightroom. But the cool thing about this whole thing is that not obviously you can create all those presets on your own because it has so many things here. You can even put like light effects like that, you know, and you can control the opacity of it, right? You can actually change, for example, like to the other side or, you know, randomly, right? You can do all kinds of stuff. And opacity, you can increase the zoom, or like make it a little bit more broad in the corner. And then you have all these awesome borders. It's a huge collection of borders like for prints like that, but then they have all the damage stuff, which is really cool. So all this stuff, man, I think is like, I don't know, $100 or something like that, 120 bucks. And it's a lot of stuff, man. It's like, it's such a cool program, you know, and I don't make any money by saying that, but they shouldn't give me shit for free from now on. Yeah. But yeah, it's super cool, man. I always like the products from those guys from Alien Skin from back in the day when I used like stuff for Photoshop. Their plugins, like they're so traditional with this stuff. But the cool thing that they really shine in this program is the presets that come with it. Like color presets, they have like all the bokeh stuff. This is all presets that, you know, it comes with the program. Just like click any of, like, when I post something online, then they have the cinema stuff. Look at how cool that is. Very gritty, right? Super gritty, like that as well. And the ones I love are basically like the, you know, the super scratched up, beat up stuff, and also the sepia ones. So like the Polaroid ones are cool too. How cool. It's like it's kind of like an Instagram filters on steroids. I mean, like you can really go to town with this stuff. And then, but if you go to the black and white ones, then you're gonna get the cool ones, especially for this guy here, since he has like a, you know, I can create some kind of look that's kind of like, let's see if they have sepia specifically. Toning, tonality, bokeh, cinema. No, lo-fi. Yeah, I think it's gonna be probably around the vintage in here. So those guys are probably gonna find a bunch of different sepias in here. And then let's see if we can find one. I created my own sepias as well, so we can take a look at those. Yeah, let's see if I can find one of those here. Let's see, my presets user. Let's open Dick Smith. Actually, I did one for Rick Baker, so let's see. Rick, where did Rick Baker? Oh man, did I save? I think I saved inside of this one. Oh, I think I saved in a different spot. Dang it, my presets. Oh, it's probably here. Oh yeah, okay. So stuff like that, you know, it's like it has a little bit of kind of like a noise in there that I added. But then there's one here, Rick Ray Sepia. Yeah, this one. So this one uses a little bit of that lens wrap thing. So it kind of gives this effect of those old pictures, you know, that kind of has this blurry edges. And then, but yeah, you can go to town with this stuff, man. It's really, really cool. And yeah, so in the past, I would use a lot of stuff like do manual color correcting controls, like using Photoshop and just adding some layers in there. But nowadays, I resolve all my problems with this, man. You know, it's just like so simple to just add something, some cool look to the picture. So I highly recommend like the alien skin, probably like version 4 if you don't have any filters yet, presets. But in my case, I'm gonna have to convert all this crap, and it's a lot that I created here to work with the new version. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions like about this or about something else? Like, let's try to use our time to actually clarify anything we can. By the way, like this Saturday we have our reviews, right? Like if you want to be part of it, the link that I sent before to the Google Drive is going to be basically the same. So you can just use the same link to drop your files in there. And please let me know if it's not working for some reason. And then in terms of deadline, it can be anything all the way up to like 2 hours before we start, which is going to be like 9 in the morning and then 9 at night again, right? So any time you guys want to drop stuff off is fine.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
You ever use any render layers and do some tweaking in compositing?
In compositing, you mean like oh, no. I actually am not rendering anything in layers. Everything is like a single pass. Yeah, like someone asked this before, and my answer is like it's a little romantic, you know. It's like it's about like trying to get as close as possible to the final result in the render, and then using just like a little color correction, maybe like some bloom effect around here, but without like you know, it's like if I need to correct too much, for example, specular and stuff like that, I rather try to get like really close within Maya. I think I got really impressed one time when I was watching a documentary about Finding Nemo. Back in the day, Pixar was talking about Finding Nemo. And then they said that they don't comp stuff. They basically like to just like try to get everything at render. So they save a ton of time like correcting stuff later on if they do it right in the frame, you know. So I got that stuck in my head. That's basically what I try to do, is like get as close as possible. But I know it's dumb. I mean, like I know I would have much more flexibility in rendering in layers. At work, I actually use a little bit more of that when I help like doing concept and stuff. As if I'm working with the art department, they need that, you know, they need more control. And, but in my case, I just like, you know, just keep everything simple. All right.
So Chris,
Yes.
About the color of the eye, the yellow.
Oh, yes, yes. Let's take a look. Let's go back to that one. Let's try, blah, blah, blah. Let's save this. Not save, just close it. Go back here. Look at all this white old man. Oh man, people give me shit for that. It's incredible. I still can't believe. Oh man. Me, a brown person from Brazil. All of a sudden I'm pro whites, man. I'm pro humans, man. If you're good, if you're talented, if you inspire me, I'm probably gonna model you. I don't care about your skin color. Okay, so let's go back here. And our Native American scene. Here you go. Yeah, it's such a shame that a lot of those guys who I admire, they all like turn out to be like this evil white man, you know? No, man, these guys are all super cool guys. Like, but you know, it's like you see interviews like Rick Baker talking about, Dick Smith, right? And how candid he is, and you know, it's like talking about like how Dick Smith was such a cool guy, and he would have like in a time that there was no tutorials on the internet, nothing, right? And at the time that was very kind of competitive, just a few people did that kind of stuff. Dick Smith would actually print out, he had like one of those, how you call mimeograph, right? So basically like he would actually print those things, almost like a rudimental Xerox machine. And then all those things like instructions on how to create the appliances and everything for makeup. And he would do that and then give away to people who wanted to learn how to do it. You know, it was like out of his own heart. And Rick Baker still talks about the guy, Dick Smith, being the best makeup effect artist ever, you know. And Rick Baker himself, you know, like remember like back when he was at ZBrush Central posting stuff, he released like his packs of stuff. He was being super generous with stuff too, you know. And so all those guys are very nice people, you know. It's like I would not model someone who is just like a complete douche. I don't think I would be able to do that just for the talent, you know. Yeah, that's why I think I don't model any like famous actors, just because I don't think they're like inspiring people. They just lie for a living. I mean, like, you know, that's what they do. They're very good liars. But in terms of like creating something, I don't know, man. Some actors are undeniably amazing, right? Like they really can touch you in different ways. But yeah, other than that, I don't know, man. I'd rather just sculpt people who inspire me, or in this case, this guy here, you know, it's like an exploration on ethnicity and trying to create someone who doesn't exist based on, you know, it's like a copy and paste from multiple different guys. And I think that's more interesting to me than, but let's take a look. Cornea. So I think what I changed here was under the subsurface. So let's look at the subsurface color first. And I have my cornea plugged in there, which looks like this map you looked yesterday, right? So it's got mostly pink, way too pink, by the way. I think I reduced this quite a lot in the tweaks in here I did. So in the color balance, let's see what I did in here. So color balance, the color gain by default should be completely white, and the color offset should be completely black, right? If you go higher with color offset, you get like more washed out colors. You basically like wash everything towards white. And then the color gain, you can actually tweak it to create different effects. So for example, for the eye here, remember like that my UVs, let's see first how they look like. So they look like this, right? So it starts like from the center to the edges, and then it's completely round all the way to the border, and the border is basically square, right? Like, so it's a square in there because of unsubdivided from ZBrush. So with that in mind, if I create a ramp like this, that means that this area here, this black area, is going to be the center of the UV. And then starting here is going to go towards the edge of the UV. So around here, instead of like having white, I turned this into something a little bit more yellow. I had it pretty much like very high here before. It was like very yellow, and it was looking very sick. He was looking like, you know, it was like yellow eyes, right? So actually slowly I started bringing it down until I got to this number. So it's like 167 saturation towards yellow. And that's the ramp I actually did. I normally, like when I want to do something like this just to see the eye, I hide everything else, keep just the eye visible with the HDRI. And then that way it's more interactive, even without the GPU, just CPU. I still can see the shift in color, and then I just can tweak it slowly, you know, so I can until I get something like this. So yeah, that's how I did the color in there. And then offset, I don't have anything, so that's basically just a color gain. And then let's see for the radius, if I have anything funny here. For the radius, surprisingly, I don't think I have anything. So it's just like the exposure, I'm adding a tiny little bit more exposure for some reason, just like visual, you know, feedback. And then the color is completely white, and then offset, there is nothing. So yeah, that's basically it. So I guess it's just a little ramp on the subsurface color, you know, and that's about it. Actually, in the color gain, sorry. Yeah, right there. So in terms of like the content for the class, what I tried to do during this whole time was basically, okay, my plan is to actually teach you guys the approaches that I take. For example, like one of the last ones I talked about, like for the sculpture itself, I told you guys, for example, like it's important to create the mid-resolution details as well. So instead of like getting caught in just like you know, it's like the base mesh, which is like the primary forms, and the super fine detail, there's this other stuff in between that's very important. The mid-resolution detail is what's going to create the balance between those two extremes, right? So if you go too clean and you don't have anything like that, then the model doesn't quite work. It becomes way too, you know, too clean, right? I understand that sometimes the model is a younger person, right? So you don't have the freedom to do all this crap that I did in here, but you can always go a little bit, you know, it's like, even if it's just like a few points in the cheeks where you can see, for example, in the reference, if you're modeling yourself, you can see like maybe you can put a strong light, maybe like put a light a little bit above your head, and you can see a little bit of the marks, you know, it's like it can be a pimple you had at some point, you're gonna see a tiny little scar, and all those little things add to the model, you know. It's just to prevent that thing that's like so it doesn't look too clean with just the pores visible, you know. For example, here, right? If I render that, so when I had just the pores, the first pass, it was looking very, you know, was not very interesting. It became more interesting when I start adding those little wrinkles and those deeper details. But obviously, just like with Ray, I might go further with this and remove even more of the pores, you know, until I get to a point that was like, okay, that works for the character I'm working on, you know. But then for some other characters, I might leave those pores completely visible, like I did with Stan Winston, you know, and it worked for that character. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is just like, don't be too shy with the mid-resolution details, you know, with the secondary forms. The secondary forms are very important. And that's basically like all this stuff here, right? This is all secondary. It's like the bigger forms, but not the primary forms, right? The bigger within the hierarchy of the small stuff in there. Okay, so who is asking to talk? Is that Cam? Is that Cam? Let's see. Someone was raising their hands. I got this little notification here. It's kind of weird, like someone is raising their hand. I think it was Cam. So like, so far guys, like in terms of where you are at with your model, right? I'm gonna tell you that struggling is important because that's the best way to learn, right? And you saw me struggling for 2 days with the braids and trying to figure out the best way to build them and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, like, okay, that's working better now, right? So we kind of get over that. And then there's another challenge that's like, oh man, now the specular looks a little wacky here. And then you have to do a pass just to fix the specular. The whole process that I try to pass to you guys from the get-go is basically like, let's assemble a scene that's a complete scene from the get-go, and then you just iterate on it. Because that way you actually compare your reference to an actual render instead of comparing to a, you know, to a screenshot like this. You know, it's like a viewport of ZBrush or Maya or whatever it is. Because there's no way to kind of like, you know, see what the forms are doing if you're just looking at something without actual light in it. So that's why it was so important. But from that point on, it becomes like a matter of like multiple iterations forever, right? And then multiple like hours of renders to get the result. and then always comparing and seeing like, okay, my next step for this guy here, for example, I was looking when I was the renders, I noticed that this area here in the eye bags can have a tiny bit more spec, but this area here, it's too specky. So I'm gonna go to my spec map, reduce that a little bit, increase this one a little bit. And it's just gonna be like a bunch of different iterations to get like that extra step, you know. I mentioned this before, that's a very cliche thing, but it's totally true. That it takes like 10% of your time to build 90% of your model, and then it takes 90% of your time to finish the 10% that are missing. And it's totally true, because it's all the devil is all in the freaking details, man. Especially in a class like this that we are basically focused on detail a lot. It really takes a long time, you know. That's why I abandon my models. I never finish anything, because I know the mountain that we have to climb, you know, to get like to a good level. But at the same time, I'm really proud and very impressed with you guys who actually managed to push so far already, you know. It's like, and it got the work looking so awesome already, you know. And to you guys who got stuck by any reason, for example, got stuck with the porous distance or depth or whatever it is, just think that that's part of the whole thing, right? Like yesterday I was stuck with my stuff. You're gonna get stuck for a little bit, gonna redo it a few times, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, now I got it, and then you move forward, you know. Sorry, yep.
Hi, Ken actually wrote the question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so do I read?
Yeah, can you read it for me? It's just
Okay.
I have it close. Yeah.
She said, I don't know, sorry. She doesn't have a mic. How different is the entire pipeline from what you do for a movie?
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it's completely the opposite. No, I'm not gonna say the opposite, because there's a lot of stuff that overlaps, right? For example, like in terms of the settings to export the displacement maps. If the model is in my hands, for example, I take care of it, you know. So for example, like I'm at ILM for about 12 years now, and people trust enough that I'm gonna know what to do with the model. It's like for the longest time, there was lots of different types of little approaches for stuff, and then different people would use different stuff. But then slowly we kind of like unify things, and I believe this is all unified. I think we are now using mid-level at 0 instead of 0.5, you know. So in terms of exporting the settings for displacement maps, I think it's all the same that I'm showing you guys here. Now, when it comes like to, for example, like to hair, right? I mean, like in a company, they're gonna have their own systems, something that they developed for many years. In terms of even like blend shapes and things like that, like, you know, it's like we have our own software to do all this stuff that was developed at ILM, and it's being developed like forever, right? Very similar, you know, it's like it incorporates a lot of cool stuff from Maya and other softwares all in a single one. Very powerful, and most of those big companies have like all their custom tools to create the stuff they do. And then, for example, for the texture, I didn't do any texture at ILM, and so I paint all my textures by hand here for the fun of it. But I mean, like if it's production stuff and you're doing VFX, most of the people gonna probably use like scans, you know, it's like in photographs, and use Mari for projections and stuff like that. So that's gonna be probably Mari would be the biggest one, I suppose. And nowadays, many companies are starting to adopt Substance as well for other stuff, especially like environment stuff. So very different, you know. But in terms of what I do with HD, for example, I'm doing HD geometry for production since I would say at least 7 or 8 years professionally, when nobody was doing it. You know, it's like nobody in the company was doing it, and I was the one insisting, dude, HD is awesome, blah, blah, blah. And it's just because I take the risk, you know. It's like I know the traps with HD. I don't have access to layers and all that crap. But my argument was always like, you know, that whole time that you guys spend like just painting seams, like removing seams and stuff, I can give you seamless maps, and it's going to save you all this time. And then, you know, people slowly start like to like that, you know. And then after many years doing like my models all the way to HD, I don't even care if other people in the company are not using, as long as I'm happy using it, and as long as people are not complaining that I'm using them, you know. So yeah, but overall, very, very different. It's almost like if I was using a pipeline that was very similar to what I do at work, I think I would get in trouble actually, because if I'm teaching this to competition. You know, it's like a lot of you guys work for companies or like compete with ILM. You know, it's like I had students like from all companies, like Weta, from from MPC, from Double Negative, all the big ones. And I'm teaching you guys all this stuff. You know, it's like if I was teaching exactly the pipeline, they would say, "What the fuck?"
Chris,
Yeah.
about the industry.
Mhm.
You know, I'm a rookie. I don't even work anywhere.
Yeah.
So, any tips?
Well, that the depressing part we're gonna enter now? Just kidding. Yeah, so the industry changed a lot, right? Like I mean, like when I started was 2004 when I came to the United States, and then when I got my job at ILM was in 2008 already. Yeah, 2008. Yeah, 2008 at ILM, but before I was at Lucasfilm Animation for 1 year. So altogether at Lucas about 12 years. And very different landscape. California had a ton of work coming here. Back in the day in 2005, 2006, Sony ImageWorks was very strong. They're stealing a lot of artists because they are paying the highest salary. And then so California was, you know, it's like it wasn't like what it was before, but it was still blooming. You know, it's like there a lot of stuff was happening. For example, like I work in a company called Cafe FX in 2006, 2005, 2006, and the guys they are like doing a lot of movies. They did like Sin City. They had Pan's Labyrinth, right? All those movies. I worked on Pan's Labyrinth. But back in that time, man, they're just growing. They just bought this brand new building. They actually built a bowling alley inside of the studio, so we play bowling during the day. There was like a, you know, it's kind of like Disneyland. They had like a soda machine with 20 something flavors, candy, free candy for everybody, right? There is like a volleyball court in the backyard, so people are playing volleyball all the time. So it's kind of like a paradise for CG artists, right? Because they're trying to attract people. But sure enough, man, the industry starts shrinking, and now they have this major studio to keep up with, right? And it only takes like one project to not falling into place to destroy the entire thing. It's like it's a house of cards. So basically, like they are counting that this project would come to the studio, and then that would help to pay for all that stuff. And it was canceled. It never came, and the company shut down. And the same way that like a lot of mid-level companies shut down in California at the same time. It was like just like went, you know, to shit. Like everybody went to shit at the same time. And then that combined with all those centers migrating to, you know, centers like Vancouver, London, Singapore, China, India for like the assets and stuff. California actually became kind of like a ghost town, you know. It's not a ghost town, I'm exaggerating, obviously, because you still do work in there and everything. But the bulk of the work is done in those other centers now, you know. California doesn't have a strong like tax break incentive or anything like that. There's no way that the government will offer anything anytime soon. And then with that, other centers, for example, like normally very expensive centers like London, Vancouver, Singapore, they're all expensive. So because they're expensive, the way to attract new artists is to actually create like, you know, it's like you talk to the government, okay, let's, you know, it's like come up with like some tax breaks and incentives so people can actually come and work for us in here. So the government helps with that to grow that industry in there. Meanwhile, the artists themselves are being screwed because they're being forced to move to a very expensive center. And then if there are guys like you, for example, like, you know, it's like I'm in it for the love of it. You know, it's like I want to get to the industry. I want to have my name in the credits, and I want to have my parents and, you know, whoever just like proud of me and all this stuff. You don't even think about that because you're so like, man, I want to get to the industry, you know? And it's a very cool feeling to have. But the thing is, like, people go to those centers and they work like many, many hours a day. And they finally, like after a year or something, when this honeymoon ends, they start thinking like, man, I can barely pay my rent. You know, it's like, it's very expensive to live in here. And then people start getting to that state like, dude, I have to move out of this place. And then, you know, it's like all of a sudden they abandon that. But then there's a line of people waiting to get that spot. And then there's always someone to replace that. How many students there are, right? Like coming out of school like every year. So it's kind of sad, man, because like in one hand, like the industry keeps booming. The studios keep making like record-breaking profits. And us artists, we don't have a union. We don't have anything, you know. It's just like we go after the work. And it's pretty pathetic. But I'm going to say like there is still like plenty of amazing work to do, like in those studios, as long as you're willing to do it knowing what you're doing. You know, kind of like you go and you're aware of what's going to happen, and then you can for example, like either you can put yourself in a situation of kind of like I'm a victim and those guys gonna suck my blood and gonna take advantage of me, or you can reverse the whole thing. You can say, no, this is gonna be a great opportunity for me to take advantage of them. I'm gonna do this for myself. I'm gonna learn the pipeline. I'm gonna get better at the skills and everything, and then I can move to another company or you know, teach someone or do anything, you know. But I think that's the way I always approach, you know. It's like I never thought like, oh, I'm gonna be exploited by someone, by this evil capitalists, you know. It's like, no, I mean, like, that's what it is. Capitalism is what brought me to this country in the first place. I'm happy with it, but it's just a matter of like really, you know, it's like what you're gonna take for yourself, you know. It's like sometimes you make sacrifices. I mean, I was stuck in a bank, working in a bank for 16 years of my life. The bank, like in terms of the work, sucked, but the people were awesome. And the bank gave me enough money to buy my first apartment and to give me money like to buy my first computers and start learning CG and all that stuff. So sometimes you're just like, when you're young, you're kind of like, oh man, I'm just like running out of time or whatever. But there's plenty of time, you know. I got to this industry when I was 32. So like 32, I mean, you're a pup, man. You're like, you look like 15. But definitely different times, man. You know, it's like you have to pick your battles. If you're willing to move to some place, like even like for the sake of like traveling and getting to know different countries and stuff, I think that's the age. You know, it's like when if you don't have a family to provide to, it's just you. I would totally go. You know, it's like, for example, if you get an invitation like to go, for example, like London, someplace in London, go and check it out. You know, it's like maybe you're gonna get a contract that most of the contracts these days are temporary anyway. They're gonna give you like maybe like 6 months contract, you know, or 3 months or whatever. Go for the experience. You know, they're gonna get a visa and stuff, work in there, and see if it's for you. You know, it's like if you say like, no, I still have some energy to do more of that, to keep going with it. You know, an example is Felipe Beckman, right? Like, who was just like on high. The guy came from nothing, man. You saw like the pictures of his house when he grew up, like misery, total misery. And the guy, he actually did a lot of very shitty jobs in his life. And then now the guy is like a lead or a supervisor, right? At the MPC Vancouver, I believe. And basically like just making those sacrifices. Basically, sometimes you have to do that, you know. But the only thing I can tell you is just like know your value. You know, it's like you're valuable. People think that the students, when they hire us, they are doing a favor to us, and it's not a favor. Never is a favor. It's when they see you, they are looking at numbers. Okay, how much your work can generate in terms of profit. That's basically what it is. Are you gonna like your work is gonna be able to provide to yourself, for example, like you know, to pay for your medical insurance and all this stuff, right? And how much of that's gonna be profitable for the company? If you're not profitable, I mean, like nobody in their right mind, they would keep someone who is not profitable, right? So it's it is. I don't think it's like an evil system. It's just what it is. You know, it's like people like in a system like this. It's like it's a system of it's voluntary, right? So nobody's putting a gun in your head and say like, you're gonna work for me and I'm gonna pay you this. They are saying like, here's the deal. It's your option. Take it or leave it. Take or leave. You know, it's like that's the amount I'm gonna pay, and it's up to you. If you want to stay with us, you stay. And maybe look for some other place. You know, and that's what it is. And a lot of artists, they do because they want that spotlight. You know, and then they end up doing that. So yeah, that's the realistic part of the entire thing. You know, it's like the romantic part and the cool part is that we are doing cool shit, and that's the cool thing. You know, I could be in a bank. Or I could be doing like a very shitty work or cleaning gutters or whatever, you know, but I'm making art, you know. It's like someone is paying me money to make art. I know they are making profit and I know they are making billions of dollars. And I can start like being paranoid about that, why I'm not making more money, you know. Or you can just say like, dude, I'm happy because I'm doing some art, you know. It's not my art, it's for someone else, but it's still a pretty fucking cool job, you know. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Well said, Chris. Well said.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, but dude, it's like I just want to tell you guys first, like thank you so much for being part of this, you know, it's like in supporting an artist, because I mean, like, I know there are many schools out there, and those schools, I already did some teaching for a school, you know, and the artists themselves, like, they get paid very little, you know. It's like, I would say like 25 to 30% would be kind of like the average. And then when I taught before, like, I got to a deal that I actually got like 50% at first, but then it was 40 next and then 30. That's how it ended up. So that was like 7 or 8 years ago. And I said, I promised myself, I'm not going to teach through a school. I think I'm going to do my own thing if I ever teach again. And it's really much better, you know. It's like, it's more work and everything. But when you support me, you're supporting an artist, you know. It's like, you're not supporting like a whole school that is doing all kinds of stuff out there. So it's like, it makes me really proud and very happy that someone see value in the stuff I do, to the point that, okay, you're gonna give me like your hard earned money, you know. It's like, that's even for you, I mean, like, as a student, you know. And trust me that I'm gonna be able to teach you something, you know. So I really hope you guys got a good amount of information out of this. And then obviously you're gonna have you know, the little form we have, the group in there. We're gonna be in touch like for a long time from this point on. And I'm gonna be around. I mean, like, most of us, we follow each other on either Facebook or Instagram or stuff like that. So let's keep in touch, and it's kicking some butt. And I cannot wait to see your works finished, you know. It's like, no pressure, obviously. Take your time, but it would be really cool, you know. And that's another thing. I mean, like, if you notice, like, I was reposting the finished work from the previous students, and I like doing that because it helps to promote you guys. So I normally, like, if I plug you like on my Instagram, you're probably gonna get like, you know, 500, 700 followers or something if your work is cool, you know. And then, but also helps me because, I mean, I don't use any ads, right? So everything that I get in terms of like people knowing what I'm doing in terms of class is basically like through people talking about it. That's all it is, you know. So yeah, I cannot thank you guys enough. And I had a blast. I always have a blast with this classes. This group especially I had a blast with, because you guys are, you know, it's like every group is very different. And sometimes like it doesn't flow the same, you know. It's like, and it's not like I'm not complaining about any other class. It's just like, it's just the way it is. Like, the groups are different. And sometimes people are more like interrupt you more constantly because they are more curious about certain things. But you guys are like more like paying attention and listening, and so things like flow very nicely, you know. It's like, it was easy to teach to you guys. And also the amount of talent is really big, as usual, right? But it's very big, and it's very cool to see the work being produced, man. So thank you so much. And if you guys have anything to say.
I actually love the class. It was a really cool experience because you know, it's been great. It's been amazing, and I actually learned a lot. You know, if I post my old work, that I have just two stuff, just two things on my portfolio, and all cartoons, and then, you know, snap and got realism out of nowhere.
And you're a very fast learner, man. And it was
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure to meet you in person in Brazil a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago, right?
Yeah, it was quick.
Yeah. We had like we had dinner together in there, like in a churrascaria, like Brazilian barbecue. Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome, man.
You actually passed me the flu.
Oh yes, I got very sick. Oh, very nice, man. Yeah,
It was really nice.
Yeah, keep going, man. Your work is showing, you know. It's like I can tell like when people are putting a ton of hours in their work, and you definitely, like, it totally shows, you know. And the funny part is that like your work was looking really good before you even start this one, because you're doing the offline version of the class. And it's really cool to know that it works, because it's kind of like a new thing, you know. It's like to just have those things in there and then people can just do on their own rhythm, and to know that actually people, I'm doing the thing like clearly enough so people can actually do it, you know. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. This is this is really cool. It's it opened my eyes to like how hard it is to do this.
Yep.
At this level.
Yeah.
It's like also that it's almost impossible to follow your class while you work. and that you have serious issues. You need to get some sleep.
I know, dude. Oh, check this out. Talking about that. Look at this, man. Can you see this? So I got this little bag today. This is actually a tester for sleep apnea.
Oh, is that for like snoring?
Yeah, not only snoring. I mean, like for probably like 15 years of my life, man, I wake up like choking in the middle of the night, gasping for air.
Yeah,
And then,
I have that too.
Oh shit, dude! So I got
Is that
this.
the one that makes noise that you sound like Darth Vader while you sleep?
No, this one actually dropped in there. No, this one is actually just a test. I'm gonna have to put like it's a wristband and then something on my finger just to.
Oh, the test, so then you can go to the
Yes.
clinic after.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's what I'm gonna have to do tonight, actually, and
Yeah,
be up early to just deliver this one back to them. And yeah, I'm just trying to stay alive so I can do more work, you know. My wife, she's a nurse. She was like, you know, people kill with this shit, right? I was like, oh man, I don't want to die now. It's a lot of stuff to do. I have to finish the hair for this guy.
Priorities.
I know, right?
But yeah,
Alright.
it's been amazing, very eye-opening, and then the amount of content that you put out is it's beyond super useful. Is just a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Most classes that you see out there don't have that amount of content, and even coming from the big schools.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So that's something that I want to give you props for it, and also putting the extra time to always answer everybody's questions. And I don't know how you do it. Like,
yeah, I don't know either, man.
but it's just thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so
and
much.
yeah, get some stuff together for Saturday, probably at night.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Anytime you guys want to be there, I'm gonna be there.
Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Awesome, guys. All right, I'm gonna go now, and then we keep in touch. I mean, like we are gonna be. If you post more stuff in the group, we're gonna be commenting until Saturday, and then on Saturday, whatever you have posted, like I said, like 2 hours before the class starts or the reviews start, I have no problem because that's the time I need just to download everything, and that's about it. So, thank you so much again, and cannot thank you guys enough, and thanks for being here with me. Cheers.
Yeah, Chris, thank you too. I wanted to say too, just
Oh,
that
sure.
it's really positive for me. I've been working for the last, I don't know, 6-7 years in mobile games, and it's been became a bit boring, but your positivity is very infectious. And I really
Oh,
love
thank you, man.
doing
Yeah.
something like this again.
Yeah, at the end we are all in the same boat, you know. It's like we are like sometimes in different levels and stuff is struggling with the different things, but I mean like we're in the same boat in the sense that we always struggle with stuff, you know. Sometimes I get like stuck with likeness, sometimes I get stuck with like learning freaking XGen, you know. And it's just like just being like in this group, obviously getting paid is even better, right? To do that. But I kind of like I see as a bunch of friends kind of like jamming, like doing work, you know, it's like in sharing stuff. That's really cool, you know. That's what I like to do as well, you know. It's like if I have any progress I post, just like you guys are doing, post my progress in there, and hoping that can inspire, you know. It's like if you guys are stuck, like okay, maybe this image here can show a little detail that they're looking for, or whatever, you know. So yeah, awesome.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
It's been a lot of fun.
See ya.
See ya.
Feedback.
See you very soon. All right.